Hello, today I find myself in a place called Stoczek Łukowski, which is located on the road between Garwolin and Łuków, approximately 80 kilometers as the crow flies northwest of Lublin. This town in 1921, of a population of around 4,500 people, 64% were Jewish. By the outbreak of war, the population was approximately 68% Jewish. In fact, the Jewish contingent of people living here actually increased in the first days of occupation. The reason for this was though because people escaped from larger cities. Now, a ghetto was formed here, and the ghetto is in the area I've got in front of me right now. There's nothing to see though any longer. Now, as all the street names have changed, it was quite difficult to actually ascertain where the ghetto was. Now, when German forces captured Stoczek on the 12th of September 1939, they deliberately burned the wooden houses of largely those which were owned by Jews, and maybe they could tell they were Jewish. Oh, I don't know, I'm unable to say. But those houses were in this area, and we have got photographs showing the horrendous damage that was actually done. Now, bearing in mind that fires were very, very common. I know I've said in many videos when I'm doing older cities that a medieval city is only as old as its last fire. The houses are made of wood. Lighting was by oil, which burned, could fall over, fall in straw, something like that, and then the whole thing could burn down. So fires were relatively common. But what happened here was the deliberate act of arson, and probably, not absolutely certain, but almost certainly, that the arson was committed by soldiers from the Kempf unit. They're exactly the same ones who on the 5th of September 1939 committed the first murder of the Holocaust at Krasnoshelsk. I've done a separate video on that, and you can see that elsewhere. I'll leave a link to it. Now, the people who were forced into the ghetto, forced into houses which had largely, been a great deal of destruction here. Now, I did actually read, and possibly with some sense of irony, but the author wrote that in the beginning of 1940, or end of 39-40, there was a building boom here as people tried to replace the houses which had been deliberately destroyed by this German unit. Now, people were forced into the ghetto here. There were people brought from various places to be here. Then people were actually pushed out. The final closing of the ghetto happened probably on the 12th of September, same date, 1942, when around 2,000 people from here were forced to walk to a village called Paryzów, which is approximately 20 kilometers from here. Now, we've got reports of the deaths, people not being able to keep up. Bear in mind, people have been in the ghetto for a very long time. After 3 years of malnutrition, forced or slave labor, and they're in a weak state. I read an account of a gentleman who carried his mother there, and so between 100 and 200, between 5 to 10% of those on this forced march were murdered en route. They couldn't keep up, and they were shot. From Paryzów, it seems as though they were taken by rail to a place called Sobolev. They had to stay in Paryzów for a couple of weeks at the expense of the local Jewish community there, and then to Sobolev, and from there they were taken to Treblinka, possibly around the 2nd of October 1942 they were murdered in Treblinka. So over here we've got another memorial to the war, which I'll show you if I go across the road. Although this is clearly something totally different. And here we have the Wehrmacht pseudonym of Stoya. He was the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion of the 35th Group of the Army Krakow, and so he was killed on the 18th of October 1946. So this is post-war, so he'd been one of those that fought the communist regime, and there's quite a lot of them in this area. So as you can see here, all the houses are post-war. Now, I was speaking to one of the locals who told me that he can recall the remains of some of the wooden houses from the ghetto in the 1960s, and it would seem also that some people have recently bought houses, so maybe they destroy the remnants of outhouses, which is to be understood. They buy land, they want to buy a house, to build a house on top of it. Now, if you want to know more about what happened here during the Second World War, then I'll do a longer video. And that's why I came here, with the view of covering some of these smaller ghettos, where dreadful things took place in this area in 1942 above all. What I thought I would do was to follow the trail as much as I could of Police Battalion 101 from Hamburg, which was so expertly documented by Christopher Browning, and other authors have still used the same materials. He wrote his book in 1992. Got Daniel Goldhagen and others. What I can actually do, as far as that's concerned, is as I do have access to Polish materials on some of these characters, so I can actually fill in one or two gaps in what Christopher Browning has. And another thing is that Christopher Browning had to use pseudonyms for all but 4 of the people mentioned in his book, and I can actually name the real names of the criminals. He had to promise not to reveal them, because he would have seen the real names because of Germany's privacy laws. So my information comes from Polish archives, then I'm in a better position to actually name them. Now, here you can see this church, which belongs to was built in the 19th century, and so from the church we have the damage, and we even see this in photographs from there's an aerial photograph from 1946, and the amount of damage still visible from this deliberate arson, largely in this area here. And here we have the main square of the town, but because of this damage it doesn't have the charm of many of the places which were of the area because of the destruction. So you've got the old church, but here, as you can see, all of the buildings are from, or nearly all the buildings are from the communist period. All the square itself is quite nice. Though of course this has been done up in recent times. I have to mention also that the people here have been incredibly nice to me. I mean, I normally don't expect to be badly treated, of course, but here the welcome that I've received, and I get the impression, I often get the impression everybody seems to know what I'm doing after the first day once I've spoke to the first person. But I was taken around today by somebody, one of the locals. He showed me all around the area. I met his daughter yesterday, and I had food brought to me yesterday. Don't know if I thought I was didn't have enough food or something. So really, I appreciate you don't get many foreigners even coming here, let alone to actually look at the history of the town. It's Stoczek. There was a battle here in the 19th century, part of the Polish uprisings. As it's outside of my knowledge, I can't really say much, if anything, about it. We've got a bus station there. Also, yesterday I was filming at the old railway station, which I found particularly interesting. So, squares like this, which will be used for the markets in once upon a time. Today was market day, but it's no longer held here. And they've got the well in the centre, but the well actually you can't actually get water out because it's got a tap on the side. Right, so I've done this off memory, and when I do things off memory I can forget things like dates and names and make mistakes, but I'll do a documentary style video on this, and then I can explain this in with more detail. So there's the clock. It's now 5 to 8. I've got a video coming up in 5 minutes time, so I'll sit down somewhere and go to the premiere of my own video. So thanks for being here today and watching. Hope you found it interesting, and interested to know more, then there'll be more videos. Bye for now.